Welcome to Office Hours, where we answer your digital, technology, internet, media-related production questions. We answer all that stuff every day. Alexander Knight in Port Coquitlam, British Columbia, is our reader today. Alexander, what's our first question?
First question this morning is coming from Andy Kokendorfer in Vieira, Florida, USA. Is there a way to get ZoomISO to select the Zoom gallery view? Thanks.
And Alex Lindsay is going to start us off this morning. Alex, good morning.
Tiles. Tiles is the way to show a gallery. I don't think that there's any way to show a gallery from ZoomISO because it's designed as ZoomISO. It's designed to grab onto those individual feeds. It basically my understanding is that unless they've added something, but my understanding is that that render of all of the elements is something that Zoom does, and so ZoomISO would not be able to render that out. I believe. I think you'd end up using ZoomOSC to kind of design something like that inside of Zoom and deliver it. But I think Tiles is probably where you'd probably go to design some kind of gallery for yourself.
Guy Cochran, your thoughts?
Yeah, Zoom Rooms Pro AV would be the way that I would go. When I just fired up my ZoomISO to check, it said gallery position 1. So here's kind of what it looks like. So here's the Zoom Rooms Pro AV controller. So this would require a Zoom Rooms license and a PC, but I'm going to show you where in ZoomISO in just a second. But here there's an output now, and you could change these different gallery views. And there's gallery page 1, page 2. So if you had multiple gallery, let's say you had 500 people, you could make pages and pages of gallery views. And so this is a PC running the Zoom Rooms Pro AV controller. Now on this Mac Mini M4 over here, I'm going to quit out of Zoom Rooms. And I'll show you in ZoomISO. If I can get this window out of the way. Here we go. Exit Zoom Rooms. So this is Zoom Rooms running on a Mac Mini M4. Now here's ZoomISO, and you'll see here from the pop-up now, if I go to gallery, so here you have participant share. When I go to gallery, it says gallery position, and when I go to position 1, that's output 7. I'm not seeing that change in my output 7, so I'm not sure if it's a bug on ZoomISO or if something changed, because I thought I remembered seeing that this would say gallery, and it didn't say position 1, it just said page 1. So I don't know if something changed in ZoomISO, but to answer your question, in my version, this is 2.3.1, the output is not showing correctly. That the way around it, the way that I've been using it, is to go Zoom Rooms and then with a Pro AV controller, and then that gives me all my pages. So hope that answers the question. And
yeah.
Right.
David Brady supported that. Then the chat said you can ISO any output, NDI or SDI, if you use Zoom Room Pro AV. So you've gotten a couple of votes in that direction, Andy. Next question, please.
This one's from John Foltz in Selinsgrove, Pennsylvania. Similar to Alex, I built an iPhone filming kit with a SmallRig cage and a 4-port USB-C hub. What is the preferred battery or power option for this rig?
Jason Bache, start us off.
I personally use the SmallRig 99 with DTAP to run the Mix Pre.
Alex Lindsay.
Yeah, and SmallRig also builds a battery plate. So you're looking for the V-mount. If you're getting the V-mount, if you're getting the SmallRig battery, you're getting a V-mount. And there's a rig. I was trying to pull it up. Let's see if I can. I can't. For some reason, I'm having a hard time finding the SmallRig page for it. But you can see it up here. This is the rig here. Let me see if I can jump to Amazon to show it here in a bigger frame. There we go. So now what you can do is this piece. So this is designed to go on rails, which you're not going to need for your iPhone version of this. But you can take this piece off, and then you end up with this flat section here, which then I use these 1/4-20s down here to actually attach it either above or below, depending on what I'm doing. A lot of times I've had a Mix Pre 3 attached to the bottom and the battery attached to the top. It seems like a lot of battery for it, but it'll run all day. And the second piece of that, and it'll run all kinds of other things if you need to. The second advantage of that is that it gives it more weight, and that's it's not great if you're trying to hold it with your hands, but if you're trying to move things around and have it look smooth, adding weight to that rig actually makes it makes the whole thing feel more camera-like and less like a little toy. So, but the 99 is, as Jason said, is what I use, and then I just use that mount to mount it to the rig.
Yeah, and I have the same thing up on the rail on the top of mine. I have one of these small, I have just a ton of those little Sony NP batteries. And for something like a Blackmagic camera or something like that are notoriously power hungry, that'll take me a couple of hours. And it doesn't do things continuously, but those battery plates and getting into a bigger battery thing is, I think, a really good idea for a lot of us who shoot. Next question.
Craig Kadoki in Toronto, Canada. The Formula One season starts this weekend. It's usually one of the top live production pipelines. What do we expect is new for the 2025 season?
Nigel Dessau is going to help us out. Nigel?
Well, as many of you know, this is an exciting time. I'm trying to get through Drive to Survive before the season starts, but they have released some new packages for the F1 system. What you'll see now is that there are a whole set of additional options that they've called their premium solution. So the basic streaming is what I think is called the Essentials, is just really data. Then the second level, which is the $85 a month, adds video. Then the next level, which is the ultimate experience, now allows multi-view. Now, there's a couple of reasons for that. One of the reasons for that, of course, is that we have people doing things like this, which is Lapse, which works on your Apple Vision Pro, which really brings multiple screens into your Vision set, not quite justifying the purchase of an Apple Vision Pro, but pretty close. The problem in our house is we'd have to buy two, so that makes that more difficult. I think the other thing that's pretty important coming up this year is there's the F1 movie. So that's the car that they're doing, reportedly a $300 million spend, mostly covered by sponsorship and F1. And you'll note that the F1 car, it's based on a Mercedes Formula 2 car, actually has more real sponsors than most of the F1 teams.
I wonder if that's the most expensive camera car ever built, because that looks like to deal with the aerodynamics of going that fast and not having things fall off of it and damage other drivers' vehicles. That would be a big research lift. Cool. Let's go to the next question.
Zach Stallsmith in Chautauqua, New York. I would like to have my iPhone 14 Pro Max and iPad Pro mounted together so I could potentially mix audio on my iPad and monitor NDI feeds on my iPhone. Is there a rig that might allow for this? iPhone on top of the iPad is my vision.
Oh, this question is like catnip for us. Guy Cochran, start it off.
Yeah, there's a cage by Axoon that I would recommend. It looks like this, and you can pick that up, and it's got some quarter 20 mounts and some Hachi mounts that you can mount your various iPhone rigs onto that. So that's the one I would look at.
Courtney Gooden?
Yeah, you didn't say how you're going to use this, if you're going to use it handheld or if it's going to be mounted on your desk and just an accessory. If it's mounted on your desk, there are a number of solutions on Amazon that you can get that are dual tablet, where you could use a phone and a tablet in this mini one. That it's just a little post that has two adjustable, and you can adjust the angle and the height on each one. And then if you really want to go crazy, there's a 4-up here, or 3-up, let's say. But it says 4 tab dock holders, so it has 4 and a taller thing here. So you can put a phone in one, and they'll fit phones and iPads separately. And it mounts securely to your desk, or it can be used in the car. What they're trying to sell is for these DoorDash users that have to have a pad for navigation and then a phone and all the other things in their car. So for delivery, it's another solution.
Alex Lindsay.
And SmallRig also makes an iPad, a universal iPad mount. So this is a case for it. I probably would, because I already have a bunch of SmallRig stuff, I'd probably go ahead and get the SmallRig mount. I like the universal ones over the ones that are fitted, because you change your iPad, you can still use it. Also, you end up with a couple more mounting options. When there's a little space between the iPad, the problem you really get into is that sometimes up here, you're going to want to mount things that you need this space for, and this is going to allow you to do that. When you have one that's fitted to the iPad itself, you limit some of what you can do, and so that's the direction that I would probably go. I haven't mounted the iPad. I haven't used this one specifically, but that's my experience and why I use the universal one from SmallRig for my phone.
Hope you have fun, Zach, and get it done to your satisfaction. If you do, send us a picture of it. We'd love to see it. Everybody here loves this kind of rigging. Next question.
Angelo Jack in Brooklyn, New York. With controlling Blackmagic design cameras, lenses via ATEM Mini, can one maintain control if using a wireless system? If so, which wireless system would work?
Jason Bache is going to start us out this morning. Jason?
Yeah, there's a way to do this, and the name of the game here, I think, is middle things. I mean, let me put it this way: your wireless should be like as barely wireless as you can possibly afford. It really shouldn't be across the room, because of course, like if you're controlling the Bluetooth camera or the a 6K Pro with Bluetooth, you're not going to get a lot of range, and even a little bit of interference can really mess it up. The other way to do it is with the brand new APC-R Mini. If you have a gimbal, DJI, you can plug these directly in to the side port of the gimbal, and that will allow you to do it. I believe this has Wi-Fi, but as you can see, there's PoE just directly into the back, and that's actually the way that I would do it.
Nigel.
Yeah, the only thing I was going to say, and Jason said it well, the Bluetooth is limited by a restriction of distance. But that's the way I always used to control mine. It was much easier. And the app that I've always used to use was called Bluetooth Plus for Blackmagic cameras. It's actually much better than Blackmagic's app itself. And you'll find that's the simplest way to control it. Obviously, it doesn't go through the ATEM, but does give you quite a lot of control.
Courtney?
What I always did is I just have a PC I'm running the Blackmagic ATEM software control on it. And then, you set it up. I use one of these little wireless 2.4 gigahertz keyboards, and they make them even smaller. iPassport makes them. And then, your cameras are mapped to 1, 2, 3, 4, et cetera. So you can switch cameras or hit the enter button to go between if you're doing live switch or, select and switch. And you hit the enter key or the space bar to switch between cameras. And this works pretty well up to about 10 or 20 feet, 30 feet from the receiver that you can mount somewhere, hopefully up in the air, or to give you better communications between the little keyboard and its little dongle that plugs into the USB port of your PC that you're running the software on.
If you're new to Office Hours and you're wondering where our questions come from, they come from you, and you can put them in, get into the system, go to MAONO, that's our Q&A system, and it's really simple. Just type into a browser or anything like that, officehours.global/join, officehours.global/join. There's a little trail to follow, and once you're in there, you'll get a notification about the next show coming up every day, and a way to get into the Q&A system so you can put your questions in and help us drive the show that way. Next question.
David Brady in New York City, New York, USA, building out a multifunction control room with NDI infrastructure. Has anyone on the panel had any experience with Science Image line of products? Looking at the Studio Edge 6-up converter.
Guy Cochran's going to help you out. Guy?
Yeah, we were a reseller for this product line, and it's some of the cream of the crop, best of breed out there. They definitely have the quality engineers, because some of this stuff that comes out of China, you look at the UI and you're just like, oh my gosh, and some of the stuff doesn't work correctly. But I worked with the Eric Pratt at US Broadcast, who did a video on this one. And this is a $7,200 item. And when it came out, I said, isn't that basically like an AJ Bridge? And I looked at the price and I was kind of sticker shocked because it's $7,200. But then I remember that the AJ Bridge Live, which has a few more channels, 9 channels, is $15,999. So if it were me, I would probably look up one of the dealers that is working with Eric Pratt and get a demo unit of the Science Image and just go bang on it in your environment and see how it works. I'm sure there's a lot of resellers out there that would be happy to help you. If you go to US Broadcast or Google US Broadcast, you'll find that site and find the list of dealers.
Alex Lindsay.
David,
excuse me.
Real quick, just for David Brady, just wanted to say thanks for your package arrived yesterday. Thanks for sending those mics over from one of the previous questions where he sent over some mics from our church. So thank you.
Oh, nice. All right. And there you go, community. Next question.
Next question is from Zach Stylesmith in Chautauqua, New York. What machine specs are recommended to run ZoomISO, ZoomOSC, and tiles?
Alexander Knight, you raised your own hand, so let's
always
go
refer to the Liminal website. They have the support documentation there, but they will basically tell you that Apple Silicon is the baseline requirements. They won't work on Intel. And as far as I know from what people have said on this panel, even the first generation base level M1 Mac Mini can do, I think it's 8 1080p outputs and still have a little bit of headroom left.
Alex Lindsay?
Yeah, the show is on the base M1, original M1 Mac Minis. I don't know how many we're doing per computer. It might be 4, but we've definitely tested it up to 8 without any problems. The M4, the newest M4 Mac Minis will, without any extra RAM. It's not a really RAM-intensive software, so the base unit that you can get there will be plenty to do most of the things that you'd want to do. If you want to go to 16 outputs, which I don't recommend on any computer at any time, just because it's just that you're putting all your eggs into one basket, you could probably do it on an M4 Mac Mini with the base. We haven't tested it, but my guess is based on previous experience, it'd probably be less than 50%. And Tiles also is extremely efficient. These are written, and ZoomOSC has almost no overhead, so you can put it on any Mac and it would work fine. These are written really taking full advantage of Apple's architecture, and as a result, on Silicon they just scream, and they're very, very low impact. So I think that it would be very hard for you to find a reason to buy. You'd really have to be pushing hard to have a reason to buy more than a M4 Mac Mini. Maybe get 16 gigs of RAM just to give you a little overhead, but that's about it.
Next question.
Burkhard Friedrich in Isterburg, Germany. GER IT Magazine Heise states Mmini M3 have swappable SSD hard drives. Anyone intrigued or any experiences with the supplier Expand Mac Mini or M4 SSD?
A couple of people have hands raised. Alex Lindsay, first and foremost. Alex?
I'm just going to say I don't know, because when I went to their site, the way that they manage cookies is so egregious that I left. So, when websites go into this thing like you cannot turn off the advertising cookies, or we're not going to give you the site. Like I understand functional cookies, but the way I think it's actually against the GDPR, like what they're doing on that site. So anyway, I think I don't know, because I couldn't get to the site without that process. I very habitually turn everything off when I enter a site.
Courtney Gooden?
Well, I am fearless of cookies because I erase my hard drive all the time. So I went ahead and clicked on it. But yeah, here's the story. These two companies make this. It is not an standard M2 SSD. They do have a socket for it. It's not soldered on the motherboard. So there's that. And they did that, I think, for inventory control, so that since they make them available in 128 and 256 and higher, when you order them, they'll just configure them before they ship them out. That way they can control the inventory a little easier. However, they're not standard M2 SSD drives. You have to buy them from those two companies that are taking I think they're taking return boards or boards that people that bought them with too small a memory and actually unsoldering the RAM chips, flash RAM off of them, and wave soldering and replacing SMD devices with the newer, higher chips, because it's a certain Apple-blessed motherboard that isn't interchangeable with any other SSD. So it's going to be kind of pricey, since there's so much work involved in creating these custom boards. And I think they're only available from those two sources mentioned, M4 and SSD, and Expand Mac. So if you find you bought the Mac M4 and chose unwisely and got too small a hard drive instead of going full bore out from the beginning, this might be a solution without having to exchange the whole computer for a new one.
Doesn't sound particularly warranty friendly, though, to my ears. So buyer beware, I guess. Next question.
David Brady in New York City, New York, USA. I have a stack of drives from recycled laptops I'd like to catalog. What's an easy lift in terminal like the old DOS tree C:/F?
I
Alex.
have to admit, as a Mac user, I probably wouldn't go down that path. There's a lot of tools that are really good at doing this, like a disk catalog maker, these kinds of things. You can do something with a script, but you're going to be doing that. It's a much more manual process, and you're not going to be building a larger database of all of your drives. So really, when you want to do something like this, you want to catalog those drives with something that's going to build an overall searchable database that's a little bit more, I mean, in my opinion. We did this with thousands of drives, thousands, and so we're able to go back to them. The other thing I will say is if you have a stack of older drives and computers, really consider getting some kind of RAID, get a bunch of 12 terabytes or 20 terabytes of storage. Get that stuff off of there. Just get it off those drives, get rid of them. Leaving stuff on old drives is a great way to lose it.
Yeah. And I'm second disk catalog maker. I think I've had it running for 15, 18 years, something like that. And it's incredibly fast for what it does. It's very efficient. Next question.
Matt Halverson in Brookings, South Dakota is asking, we are looking to upgrade our studio lighting. I'd like to get DMX-capable lights. Is there anything I need to know about DMX? I've never used that workflow.
It's been well documented out there. DMX started, I think, in theaters, and it's really taken over the world. So if you can learn to speak basic DMX, which is not hard to learn, you'll have a whole new world of lighting control and inexpensive lighting control, actually, at the base level. Alexander Knight, you want to dive in on this?
Yeah, there's a fair bit. And I got to admit, the first time I had to learn lighting, and I was kind of thrown into the fire because, when you rent PA equipment and lighting equipment, you kind of have to know about lights. And I had a lot of audio background, but didn't know anything about lighting. So, I grabbed the DMX controller from work, grabbed DMX cables, started doing research on how the DMX protocol works, understanding the differences between regular low impedance analog audio cable and DMX cable. That's where sometimes it gets confusing because there's also different standards with the pins on the cables. So there's 5-pin DMX and there's also 3-pin. A lot of the higher end professional stuff will use 5-pin, whereas a lot of the cheaper quote unquote DJ lighting will use 3-pin. And of course, when you're looking at that connector, you see an XLR jack and you think, oh, just any regular analog audio cable will work. Which it may on shorter runs with not a lot of lights in your chain, but you really should use the correct cable. And also, when controlling these lights, you can get a physical piece of hardware to do this, but nowadays you can also use a lot of software. So you can get these little Ethernet to DMX converter boxes, which basically takes the DMX control signals and converts it into a protocol called ArtNet. And it puts it onto your network, and then you can use apps that will understand that protocol and allow you to control all the fixtures and give you all that control with a lot of flexibility. And oftentimes, I like the app even more. I use an app called Luminaire, which is a subscription app, and I've tried a lot of them out there, but it's by far the best supported application. It's Mac and iOS compatible, and they're constantly adding fixtures to it. They actually have a fixture cloud, so oftentimes I open the app and there's a new update there, and they've added all the new lights that have been released. So it's a really well-supported app. So there's a lot of great things with DMX that you can do. If you want to get started, I recommend going to YouTube. Look up a channel called Learn Lizard. They're not the highest quality videos out there in terms of production, but he is by far the best as far as just explaining how to use DMX. And everyone that I've sent to his YouTube channel that knew nothing about DMX came back to me and said, I actually know how to work it now. So that's my suggestion. Alex Lindsay.
Yeah, I agree with what Alex said. And what I would think about is getting a program like, there's a couple of them. Luminaire is a subscription program. You can find some free ones as well, but Luminaire is the one that I use as well. What I would recommend is you can definitely watch the videos that Alex suggested. Also think about getting some kind of, this is what some of these controllers that Alex was talking about. This is the DMX King. There's a couple other ones that, have a variety of other power sources and so on and so forth. But look at getting, and remember that you got to pay attention to whether you're using 5-pin or 3-pin DMX. So whether your controller has 5-pin or 3-pin, it matters. You can get converters, but it's a lot easier if you get them all the same. As you get started, you'll probably be working with a lot of 3-pins, so just make sure that your controller is a 3-pin here. The other thing to think about is getting a couple of these lights. These are expensive, but some of these are very inexpensive. You see these little $60 for 4 lights. And it's nice if you got a couple of them, because now you've got a couple of them with a couple settings, and you can now start to play with Luminaire and see how and tie those together and understand, in a single universe, what you can kind of do with a couple different lights and turn them on and off and kind of move them around. Not move them, but you can get little movers as well. But just little lights, and that's going to get you over the hump of understanding how the DMX works. And then after that, it's off to the races. I mean, some of the stuff that we see with some of the lighting design that on some of the shows that I work on is just mind-boggling. And we have great resources inside of Discord. Tlaloc Lopez Waterman is probably one of our experts in DMX when it comes to lighting and control. I've worked with him quite a few times on this kind of thing. So also ask questions in Discord.
And Matt, Mickey in the chat said, read the DMX 101 handbook from Elation. Elation's one of the bigger companies in these controllable lights things. Next question.
Next question is from David Brady in New York City, New York, USA. Not a question, more a tip. Got turned on to Warp, the intelligent terminal, and man, what a game changer. Natural language interpretation, AI-powered collaborative terminal. Check it out.
Alex Lindsay, have you heard of this?
I have not heard of it. This is why I love being on the show every day, is that you get on and then people like David put up stuff that you're just like, whoa. So this is a Warp. I don't know anything about it yet, David, but thank you for the tip, and I'm downloading it right now.
Is that like a chat GPT for terminal commands? For
it does look like it's natural commands. So you're saying like, we need to do this. I need to do this. Can I do this? And it converts those things to it. I mean, that's mind blowing. So it's for the Mac, and we're gonna download it.
Courtney, you had a thought?
No, it's not just for the Mac.
It is
Windows.
It is for the Mac. I didn't say it was just for the Mac. I just said it's for the Mac.
They make it for the Mac.
I was
cross-platform.
First time I saw it, and all I saw was download for Mac.
That's all. Got the blinders on. Wait,
exactly. I was like, I don't have to look any further.
Well, in defense, the website designed it that way. So
no, it's because if I was on a Linux machine or a Windows machine, it would say download for Windows or download. I was just
it's being intelligent as a terminal.
I was just baiting Courtney. So anyway. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, David, I hope that sounds like a great tip. Thank you for injecting that into the show commentary. Let's go on to our next question.
Brian Carney in Wheaton, Illinois is asking, looking for suggestions to replace my laptop backpack, looking to spend under $200 US and prefer no wheels to carry 1 to 2 laptops, power supplies, etc.
Nigel Dessau is going to help you out first. Nigel?
Yeah, so I think laptops and bags can be a religious subject. So people have their favorite, and there are some designed for laptops, and there are some designed for many things. So I was going to share with you the one that I use for all that's right and wrong is this. It's the High Sierra High Sierra backpack. I really like this backpack, partly because it has lots of different spaces and is more general purpose than particularly for a laptop. It says it's some TSA thing. I've never quite understood what that was about. But in the back part of the bag, I often have my laptop, an iPad Pro, and another screen that I travel around with me, a little, laptop type screen. And that works really well. I find with these general purpose laptops, backpacks, you can really sort them and change them for different needs. But I tend to fill mine so that I never have to change it. So I've got all my cables, all my connectors and everything, and it's always ready to go. And I found those for $100, the easiest general purpose one that seems to hold up.
Alex Lindsay.
Yeah, my general purpose one that I've used for maybe the last 15 years is this. This is a Rush 24 backpack. I have used that. With Pixel Core, we had that was our standard issue. So if you show up at the company, we go, here's your bag, and we put your name on it. It's got a little Velcro for the name, Velcro for a logo if you like, it's almost indestructible. It also allows for webbing, so you can attach stuff to it. So I use it to pull tripods and all kinds of other things as well. So it's it's got lots and lots of pockets. It doesn't have specific laptop pockets. You need a neoprene for your laptops if you want to put them in there. I use smaller laptops, so I slide them right in against my back. I can put a 14-inch Mac and a MacBook Pro and a iPad right against my back inside the little one that I don't know what it's supposed to hold, but that's what I hold one with it. And then I put all my other stuff, my Vision Pro and everything else in the main terminal, main opening that it has there.
Courtney?
Yeah, I was just looking at what's available these days, and there's some, if you're going on trekking, there are even some that have solar panels built into them that will charge your laptops while you're hiking. I wouldn't necessarily travel with this very well on an airline. And you got to be careful when traveling on an airline. If any of these backpacks have built-in batteries or rechargers or power packs, they have to be removable and they have to be below the ampere rating, and they have to be carried in the cabin with you as carry-on. And the battery has to be removable. Otherwise, you're going to have to leave your expensive backpack behind, because check the rules of the airlines if it has any built-in power to it. Removable lithium-ion batteries have to be removable, and they have to be below a certain amperage. So check your airline.
And just have one comment too. My tiebreaker for two backpacks is if one of them has a lighter interior as opposed to the jet black interior. And the reason is I can't tell you how many little things when I've had to strike really quickly, and I hate doing this, but throw some stuff in there. I've had small cables and small connectors get stuck in a corner. And if it's black interior and you're not using a flashlight and you're backstage, you can't find anything in them. So the first time I got a Case Logic backpack that had a bright yellow interior, it changed my life because it was so easy to find those little things that might be in there. Again, if you're a precise packer and you pack everything in sub-kits and things like that, that may not be important to you, but I love having a lighter interior gray or yellow as opposed to black. Next question.
This question is from me. What is the difference between Zoom Rooms Pro AV and getting ISO feeds via ZoomISO or even via SDK like third-party apps in mimoLive?
Guy Cochran's going to help us out. Guy?
Yeah, if you have a 1080p account, I'm sure the video quality is the exact same, whatever pipeline you're choosing, because it's just bits. But as far as control, you get enormous control with using Zoom Rooms or Zoom Rooms, more so with Zoom Rooms Pro AV. So with a Zoom Room, a lot of the time what we're doing is we use this online portal that's in the back end of Zoom. So this is a Zoom Room controller that's in the cloud. So now I can route NDI output. So it depends on your workflow if you're going NDI, SDI, HDMI. Now with the Zoom Rooms Pro AV controller, you get additional control here where you could make your deck link. So I have a quad, so there's 8 outputs here, and I could make one of these an out or an in, but I can also change the content to be active speaker, gallery view, any participant. There's also Spotlight pin groups, so that's like you could do a 3-up, a 4-up. So I could have Decklink 5 be a 4-up, and there's just tremendous power if you're using something like a Constellation or a ROS or something else where you've got hardware SDI and you want to route this stuff around. So for the ultimate flexibility, the Zoom Rooms Pro AV controller with a Zoom Room would be best. But if you're just doing basic stuff, vMix, Ecamm, mimoLive, all of these will allow you to bring sources in that will have the exact same quality, and whether you bring them in through NDI or Syphon, the quality is the same. But what I like about the Zoom Rooms in the cloud is the way that we work with teams is especially a lot of speakers coming through and having to route them. I have somebody else that's afar, and they can change those routings anywhere in the world. So I don't have to worry about it. I can concentrate on just cutting the show, and my sources are coming in. So if you got a person coming in every minute, it's super fast to use a Zoom Business account or a Zoom Rooms account that has that pop-up in the back. And I think it's $40 a month just for a regular Zoom Room, and you get that pop-up in the back that allows you to join the meeting as a Zoom Room and have that control. And you just give those keys to anybody.
If you have a question you want to get in the show queue quickly, you can just type askofficehours.global into a web browser, any web browser. That's askofficehours.global. If you want to use a QR code, I popped it up on the bottom of the screen. You can take a picture of that, and that'll get you the same place. And so that is the quickest way. It'll get to the back-end crew, and they'll vet it, make sure everything's in good shape and it's clear. And then it can literally get into the show very quickly if that is your desire. Let's go on to our next question.
This one's from Robert Linkram in Belmont Shore, California. New XLR plus USB plus mic. MAONO, I'm not sure if that's the correct pronunciation, PD300X.
Courtney Gooden.
Well, I think there's a little marketing going on here. They're advertising 192 kilohertz sample rate on, I guess, their USB interface. But this is a microphone that's designed for vocals. It's for your voice. And if you have things up in the, 96 kilohertz range coming out of your voice, you need to, go see a doctor, because that's just not right. So I think this is mostly marketing. Most people don't need that high a frequency sample rate to sample the human voice, and most diaphragms and most microphones can't get up to a frequency range that would benefit from the 192 kilohertz sample rate. So take it with a grain of salt. It's bragging rights. Hey, mine samples at 192 kilohertz, and we're going to be slowing it down in post. You really don't need to sample at that high a bit.
Alex Lindsay. Oh, excuse me. Thought you were done, Cartney. Alex Lindsay.
Yeah, it doesn't have it says 5 levels of noise reduction, but most of them are like high off-axis rejection. Okay, a flocked pop filter. Okay, EMI shielding. Okay, these are all things that you probably should have on your mic. Most mics that we have will have those things. It has a noise gate. That's cute. Now, one thing that is interesting is it does have a lot of software that you can theoretically control. It's got a software that sits on your computer that allows you to control compression and EQ and lots of other things. I don't know, or I just don't know whether that's being done in the mic, whether the computer is controlling that. The reason that that's interesting is for folks like us that want to send something out to like if I wanted to pre-configure this for a certain sound and then send it out in the same way that we looked at doing with Shure's. That's a possibility, but I don't, we haven't seen ones with EQ and everything else. There's no reason why it couldn't be built into it. So it looks like an interesting mic for $94 on Amazon. It's not a bad price.
Alexander Knight.
Oh, we've had analog to digital converters that have been able to go up to 192 kilohertz sample rate for many, many, many years. And it is utterly useless. Almost nobody uses that kind of sample rate. For music production, 96 is usually where we kind of do work with. But from very specific, and I mean very specific mastering, restoration projects, if you're trying to restore stuff from tape, like you're doing something for the Beatles, yes, they'll probably oversample and use these higher sample rates. But looking at this article and the way the microphone is designed and the way they're advertising it, it seems more marketing than sense to me. I tend to recommend my microphones from known manufacturers that are established, that have been making microphones for many, many decades. I admit the software interface looks kind of interesting, but there's also a lot of other companies that offer this type of functionality. If you just look at the USB microphones that Shure has now, like the MV6, the MV7 hybrid microphone. Presonus has a pretty good audio interface with lots of onboard processing as well. Of course, Lewitt has their audio interfaces with DSP processing on there. There's a lot of different options that are good, that are probably also going to give you better service and better support. So just think about that as well.
Alex Lindsay, want to come back?
Yeah, I will say that the graphic design is next level, though. I mean, we talk about the quality of a mic, but look at these graphics. I mean, they're so well designed. I mean, so I will say that they did that right. They got it. This is the way everybody's PR stuff on Amazon should look, in my opinion. Very well shot, well lit, good design graphics. Anyway, I just have to point out, looks really nice. Now, the one thing that I did notice when you scroll down is that does this one look a lot like this one? This is the fine XLR. I'm very curious what the sound difference is between these two, given that they look almost identical, and I'm wondering whether the graphics is a big chunk of what's different between them. I'm guessing that they both come out of the same place in Shenzhen.
I will say a couple of things about this because I use microphones every day. One of the things about spending money for microphones is you get into the realm of really high tolerance manufacturing. And the mic I'm sitting in front of now and the other one that I typically use, the Sennheiser, both of them are more than 15 years old, and both of them have been in solid use every single day or very close to it through the course of my career. So the investment I made, I felt, was a very good investment back in the early days. And some of the microphones I have in the closet back there are from the 1970s and 80s, and they still sound as good today as they did back then. So a $100 or under $100 mic, there have been tremendous advances in manufacturing the rest of that, and it may last and do that kind of work for you, or it may not. Whenever I see a $100 mic, I think, so the parts in there probably cost them maybe $20 or $30, and then the manufacturing tolerances are the question. Did they use really cool modern manufacturing technology that can drive high tolerances at low production costs? And if so, this might end up being a fine mic, and it might last you a long time. But I'm always thinking of that long game, and that's up to you to decide which price point is best for you. Courtney, you wanted to come back in and make a last comment?
Yeah, I was just going to say there are instrumentation mics that record super high frequency for, analyzing bat squeaks and things like that, scientific applications. But I looked at the frequency response of this capsule, and it's 40 hertz to 16 kilohertz. So with an iQuest rate,
that's pretty limited. Yeah,
48K would probably do you just fine. You don't need to get up to 192 with that, since the only input to that A to D converter is going to be the microphone. What's the point?
Yeah. Well, thank you for bringing it to us, Robert. Next question.
This one's from Kenny Hampton in Greenville, Illinois. I am seeing this Presonus device pushed on social media with a discount. Would this be would it be a useful controller for production?
I'm not sure what it's controlling here. Presonus is an audio company. They make a lot of things, and I've heard decent things about them. Alexander Knight, do you have any experience with Presonus as a brand or this particular device?
I do. I have used many Presonus products over the years, and I do sell them. So we sold some of these ATEMs. They've been around for quite a few years now. It's possible, I haven't checked, but it's possible they might be having a fire sale because they've discontinued this, or it will be discontinued soon and replaced. But there's a lot of companies that make products like this, so I'll just quickly show you what we're talking about here. So we're basically talking about a small little controller that supports MIDI commands over USB. So you get these pads here, you get these rotary encoders here, and these buttons on the side here, which you can reprogram. These could be macros. But I do see people use this stuff. I have seen people use it in production, whether it is at a concert to trigger playback or do something else. But again, these are not pro-level devices, right? So these are not pro level. I would probably have another one as a backup in case this one stopped working. I don't know how much I would trust a $100 USB little control surface like that.
Hey, if you value what we do here, I'm sorry, Harshid raised his hand. I almost missed it. Sorry about that, Harshid.
No worries.
You dive in.
Thank you, Bill. And so, Bill, to the question, I actually saw this in use by a blind individual. He was using Pro Tools, but as a surface control or having something tactile. That Presonus device, I don't know if that's the same one you're speaking of, that's being on sale everywhere. But if you go to our Discord server and look under Accessibility General, you'll be able to find that Pro Tools video that the gentleman is using this control surface. So I would probably say yes to it. And again, some of these devices is where is it going to be useful for you? So again, prosumer, consumer is understood, but if it works for you, why not?
Great point. I'm so glad I didn't miss you. Excuse me, almost. As I was mentioning, if you like what we do here, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can volunteer at officehours.global/volunteer, become part of the team. It makes everything that happens here possible. Or if none of those are possible for you, if you'd like to support us, donate at officehours.com or .global, officehours.global/donate. Those are the main ways you can help participate and support the show. Thanks so much. And next question.
Tommy Shanson, St. Paul, Minnesota, USA. Is anyone using Apple TV 4K interfaces for production? If so, what for?
Alex Lindsay.
Primarily, we use them to be able to throw a display of something up into our system. So it's an easy way for a presenter to open up their iPad. Usually the Apple TV is sitting literally under the table. Like it's just wired under it. It just means that they can have a wireless interface, and we find it to be relatively stable. So that's how we... It's not sometimes as good as having being plugged into the iPad, but it sure does look nicer on camera. So that's the primary place that we use them.
Jason Page.
Yeah, what Alex said, but I also really, really love putting the Vision Pro through it. It just is the easiest possible way to get it into a switcher.
Nice. Next question.
Roscoe Jones in Madison, Indiana. Should a demo reel get you work or just verify you can do the work? What is their value, if any, these days?
Alex Lindsay.
I made a demo reel in 1999. That was the last demo reel that I've made. I think about it. I ponder ideas around, but I'm just so busy doing work, I don't need the demo reel. I think the demo reels, if you're getting started, it's probably not a bad idea to put one together, but your work comes from who you know, and people already know what you can do. Sometimes a demo reel is kind of like a CV or a resume, where it's kind of a performatory thing that you have to send somebody something. But someone had recently asked me about a web page, about their website. Can you look at our website and everything else? I was like, that's great. I just don't know what I should be looking at for a production website, because none of my friends have one. Like all the people that I work with, no one has when Pixel Core at its height, we still had our educational stuff on the website. Like, it was literally like there was nothing there that said what we did. So and I'm not saying that's the only way to do business, but I am saying that it is so important to think about how you're working with others and building up connections and building up those things and doing specific things that get out there, whether it's a YouTube or other things. But a demo reel, I just haven't seen anybody's demo reel for a really long time. Like, I don't know the last time I saw a demo reel from anybody, so maybe 20 years.
Courtney?
Well, we don't send out tape demo reels anymore because nobody has tape machines that'll even play them back. Everybody these days who is new into the business or has a small amount of work that they've done that they want to show off sets up a website, which you can do with many of the easy setup website hosting spots out there, and can put up samples of their work and or a list of clients they do work for. So you can just send someone a link to, take a look at what you've done. For unknown cinematographers, this might be a way to see a sample of their work. For any other, or if you're a writer or director, maybe of commercials or something, it might be a good thing to see. If you have any commercials on your website that are easily recognizable, that run all the time, it'll give people the chance to actually look at them and say, oh, yeah, I've seen that before. And that guy did this? Oh, okay. So he must be worth hiring. So it lets people know what level of work you're capable of producing. So the website is the way to do that these days, and people put their old reels on there. Yeah, but like Alex says, I had a reel once of all my computer work, but it was back about 1994, I think, was the last time I updated.
Exactly.
I will admit, one of my most read articles back in the early days of my career was one I did about demo reels, and this was 25 years ago. And the advice then was, don't do a reel, have samples of your work in a format that you can get to people. So in the modern era, that would be some links that go directly to things, and a variety of things, because I want to first talk to who I'm going to be dealing with here and say, what are you looking for? And then if I have a couple of pieces that I've done in the past that are targeted to the kind of thing they're looking for, if they're looking for, can I light or can I do sound or something like that, I have samples that do that. And I say, well, here's a couple of URLs. Just go take a look if you want to see something I did before. But that's different than the old, I'm going to sequence a demo reel and make it 5 minutes and show you all this stuff. I think that's gone. We're in a kind of a nonlinear world now, and demo reels, the old-fashioned ones, are very linear. Alex, thoughts?
Yeah, I will say that a lot of us, the general insider thing is that a lot of us who are doing production oftentimes are doing things on the weekends or in the evenings that are for fun. Like, we're trying to figure something out. We're going to go record something. We're going to go record a band or do something else, and you'll see, and we'll ping each other about those things. People who say yes to those often, you kind of build up like, oh, you know what that person knows how to do. You know what they're like on set. You know what they're, you build up friendships and connections with folks. And then as soon as jobs come in, we all call each other. So, I think a lot of people have this, like, I don't want to work on stuff that I'm not getting paid for, but that's how all of us are trading work. Like, just so you know, like, that's the secret, is all of us are doing stuff with each other that isn't paying all the time, like all the time. And we're fiddling with things, and we're bringing people in, and we're doing this, and then, or it pays very little, and we all are like, oh, that's fine. Like, I'm not booked today. Let's go do something. The people who do that oftentimes are really busy, you can't do it when you're not going to do it in competition with paid work. But if you're not paid, if you're not working that day, building up connections and building up skills and experimenting with new things is a really valuable thing. It's 10 times more expensive, not more expensive, but 10 times more valuable than a demo reel.
Next question.
Evan Troxel in Talent, Oregon. Any experience using automation platforms for helping to run your business? I currently use Zapier, but my renewal is coming, and I'm interested in hearing recommendations for alternatives like Make or N8N as examples.
Alex.
Zapier is really the industry standard. So I don't know. I think I would be very careful of leaving that one from an automation perspective. We use it in some automation with Airtable, and it's pretty powerful. I don't know of anything else that we would use in replacement for Zapier.
Let's go to our next question.
Greg Kadoki in Toronto, Canada. Syphon virtual webcam no longer supported in macOS Sequoia.
Alex?
Yeah, I think that there's been a lot of the libraries that have been changing. I'm not sure if it's no longer supported, but I think it may not have been updated. I think that Syphon has been kind of on a this is why you wait a long time to upgrade. So I was like, oh, I haven't had that problem, and I was like, realized I haven't updated to Sequoia on my main machine either. So this is why you want to kind of let things shake out and see how they go. My upgrade time for Sequoia will probably be sometime this summer for my main production computers. I've got a couple computers on it. Seems fine, but these kinds of things are the problems.
Let's go to our next question.
David Arsenault in Bonaventure, Quebec, Canada is asking, I tried mimoLive following your suggestion, and I've loved it so far. Could you do a quick comparison between using an ATEM and mimoLive in terms of capabilities? I don't see the full big picture yet.
Alexander Knight, you raised your hand on this one. Dive in first.
Well, David, this is an exciting journey for you because I've been using mimoLive for the last year, and I feel like I've barely scratched the surface. It's an amazing application. But before I get into the pros and cons, let's sort of explain some of the differences of these two. So if you're using an ATEM or any kind of hardware-based camera switcher, that's a very, very different workflow, and it's a very, very different mindset. So typically when you're using something like an ATEM, you're working in a very traditional workflow where you have like a preview bus and a cut bus or preview and program bus. So basically that's a very traditional way of switching a show and putting things together, and you have super sources and picture and all that sort of stuff. You're limited to the capabilities that switcher can do. It is designed to do one thing, and usually they're pretty stable, and you can't push it past what it can do, which is something you can do with computers. Now, as far as mimoLive is concerned, when you're moving from an ATEM to mimoLive, one of the points of friction I found was getting away from that mindset of that preview program bus, because that isn't something that's in Mimo. And you got to think of mimoLive as more of a compositing engine, and think of it more like the Photoshop of video production. So you have sources, you have layers, things are stacked together, you can move things around. It is so much more flexible and so much more powerful, again, within the limitations of what that computer is capable of doing. You have processor and RAM limitations, but you can do so much more. You can do way more complicated productions. You can do automation, you can script things, you can add graphics and animation. You can do so much more with a lot less computers. Like if you had an ATEM switcher and you wanted graphics, there's some things you can do in there, but a lot of times you need an external computer to bring in graphics and all this sort of stuff. So for me, for my workflow, I'm absolutely loving it. I'm using my ATEM less and less, and honestly, I can see myself one day soon completely getting rid of my ATEM for production, just using my M4 Mac and mimoLive, but I'd have to get a Blackmagic SDI card and use SDI and all that sort of stuff. But that's basically the underlying basics of it.
Guy Cochran.
Yeah, well said, Alexander. MIMO stands for multiple in and multiple out, and I like the comparison to Photoshop with the layers concept, because that's basically what it is. You have your video, and then in the center section, you have this ability to do what you would in Photoshop where you're adding videos. One of the things that really shines, though, and I know Alex uses it in his workflow this way, is to use these remote buttons. And so one of the things that really differs between an ATEM is that, let's say I wanted to have a volunteer operate this city council meeting. I can create these buttons that all they would see is just these big buttons here, and I could put this on an iPhone or an iPad. So when I say start meeting, the agenda shows up here. This is program. So basically, the end user wouldn't have to look at the mimoLive interface if they didn't want to. They could just see this button, and then when I press the next button, it goes over to the mayor. So this would be a run a show essentially, and the volunteer will only have 6 buttons. So they would get the open, they would get the discussion, and this could be Zoom people coming in, it could be people in-house, and then you could have a little Q&A section, even if the person's remote, and then you could cut back to the mayor and end the stream. And when you end the stream, you've got the YouTube or Facebook or RTMP stream, wherever it went to, and you've got your recording. So as far as differing from an ATEM, it varies pretty wildly when you say, oh, it recorded, it streamed, and it gave me this simple button layout plus my graphics all in one. That's pretty cool. And these were NDI cameras, so with PTZ, and you could even program those PTZs to macro over to wherever position that you want using these buttons. So really powerful software, and I'm sure Alex will finish this out with even more stuff.
Go for it, Alex.
Yeah, I mean, I really, for the shows, the shows that I'm doing on my own by myself or with a couple other people, I just find MIMO to be really, really valuable. It is this ability to, as Guy was talking about, is build a kind of a remote control system. I'm trying to see if I can pull that up really quickly, but being able to build out a remote control system, and I was going to try to see if I can pull up. Let's see here if I can.
While you're doing that, Alex, the other thing that I was excited about last week when we got the new Mac 4 hardware, it's just Apple pushing this envelope. So what I just showed you was on a $599 computer. So as we catch up on the vMix PC world, I always needed to get this big graphics card, big 3070 or something, and now I'm into a $2,000 laptop. Now for $1,299 last week, I can get a 15-inch MacBook Air, which I'm still waiting to see what the thermal throttling will be like. But really, it's MIMO's pushing that hardware. And Apple's just like, here's more powerful machines. How many inputs and how many outputs you want to do? You want to do 4 streams plus 10 inputs? Let's go.
Yeah, and here's so like if we look at this is like the interface that I use for Michael's show when we're doing it with MIMO. And so what you can see is I have my slate, my countdown, my end, my Michael solo, the 2 up between them, the guest only, the 2 up but no lower third. We'll be right back slide if I need it. There's a question, and all of these things are animated. I can hit just start live streaming, and it starts streaming. I can hit start records. It'll start all the ISO records. If I hit stop all, it stops the streaming, stops everything else. And that is what I use to run the show. So instead of trying to figure those things out, now the way I do that in MIMO is that I have layer sets. So I set up these layer sets of all these settings, do this but not this, turn this on. There's a whole bunch of things that it does with those layers. And then I simply expose those layer sets to that as well, and I can do layer sets and other actions and other bits and pieces. As a one-person editor, that is just key, and I don't need preview because, look, I'm in the show, like I'm hitting it, and the amount of and I think that it's one of the secret weapons to mimoLive is that interface of being able to build your own interface. It's not something that's just there; it's something I can design and move around. And being able to build that to control my edit while I'm live, or even if I'm not on the air, it lowers my cognitive load for the show dramatically. I'm not looking at things and thinking about them. It's a show that I do all the time. So that pre-programming and really being able to set that up, and it's so fluid that I'm able to between shows. I save every version of every show that I've done with MIMO because I change it. I go, I need another button, or I need another thing. If you go back and look at that interface 10 shows before that, it looks slightly different because I moved the buttons around. I added another button. I did another thing here. And so it's constantly evolving. It's not like a lot of us have had the Crestron, controllers that, you need to hire somebody to come back out and move a button. And this is just like, it's very, very fluid. And so that's a real power of MIMO and being able to put those things together and build very complex wiring. The downside of it is that sometimes we do lose a couple frames. Sometimes it streams twice the bandwidth it needs to. Sometimes it is. Sometimes the audio can be a little bit hard to deal with. It's not as it can be a little less stable at times, than what I have with hardware. But what I have with hardware is a lot more expensive. I have to add a lot of things to it. So there's this trade-off. When I use it as a camera, the primary use for my Mini Extreme here is for the show. It's an interface. So I've got all this stuff in hardware, and no matter what software I'm using, my webcam is just a switcher, and that's a big advantage over a software switcher for it. So it just depends on what you're trying to do. I go back and forth and make decisions about whether to use MIMO or hardware all the time, and it just really depends on what you need. So one's not better than the other. They're just two different tools in the tool chest.
Alexander Knight, wrap us up.
Yeah, and I'll be really quick, 10 seconds. I just wanted to show you this because I'm a little jealous of Alex's remote control interface because his is so much cleaner than mine. Look how many buttons I have. This is just ridiculous. But that, to the point, the benefits of a remote control interface is the ability to move these squares around. I can make them bigger. I can make them smaller. I could add icons. Again, You're in for a treat playing with MimoLive.
And I will say, Alex, the key is I made the grid really small. So I make lots and lots of grids, and then I drag these across the grid. So these are 3x3s or 2x3s or whatever, rather than using the grid itself as a button.
Why does that remind me of my editing approach, which is typically additive first, add all the things into my edit that I want, and then subtractive, get rid of what isn't absolutely necessary, and you eventually get to exactly the right solution. Hey, I really thought we were going to end up with few questions today, and we ended up with more. So if we didn't get to your question, if you put them in the QR code, they'll stay there, or that quick process, they'll stay there, and we'll bring them back tomorrow. If you didn't, your questions get sent back to you in your notes on the show software. So just understand that. Thank you for your questions today. We had a lot of them, and I'm sorry we couldn't get to all of them. Don't forget, every show takes a lot of people to do, and our constituencies, we call them, who are helping us out. Number one, the producers, those of you who are watching the show, adding your questions into the show and making the show happen because of your questions. Thank you so much for all of your questions and for being a part of us every single day. To the panelists who come here and freely share their expertise, thank you all. And all of the panelists who've helped us all learn so much about production and this environment. And finally, and certainly not to be missed, are the completely amazing crew of technicians and brilliant people who are our back-end crew that make this possible every day. So many people working on so many things, developing software, managing guests, just doing a ton of things that you don't see on the show. You'll see some of the names on the credit roll. Pay attention to those people, but there are even more people behind the scenes, and it is a pleasure to work with all of you. So thank you so much for being here and helping things out. The Lock Traversal today, 33,000 miles is how far you would have had to go to get answers to these questions if you had actually had to travel to get to these people who have put the questions in. 37,000 kilometers if you're in the metric system, and 184 million equivalent bananas for scale. Thank you so much for being here today. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, Alexander, you need to make just more services. As many iPads, as many browsers.
That.
Yeah, you can keep on doing it. Yeah, just keep on making surfaces. Yeah.
Oh, I should have promoted the show tonight.
Year, and I had no idea.
Yeah. You can just make multiple iPads. They're all web interfaces. Yeah.
Who needs a Stream Deck?
Mm-hmm.
And if you open up that port or used VPN access, you could allow other people to do that for you.
Hey, Bill, when's the show tonight?
Always 6 o'clock, I think, isn't it? Isn't that when the Thursday show is? David Paskin will be doing his thing tonight.
Rundown.
The Rundown. Fun show.
That's it.
I got to find some time to get back on there. It's just nice people, fun group to do what I did. I think I've done it 2 or 3 times. Enjoyed it every time.